September 23rd, 1989. A sleepy Saturday. The Reaganomically successful war on drugs is in full swing, and in a sleepy little slum in Tacoma, Washington, a clash of the ages would take place, where a street gang known as the Crips decided to go mano-a-mano with a bunch of guys who were attending a barbecue. What they didn't know was the guys who were at this barbecue were the types of guys that you really did not want to mess with. The Ash Street Shootout. Please leave a like and a comment on this video because it really helps me in the algorithm. But before we get started, this video is brought to you by Fishing Clash. You all know that I really love fishing, but with a wife, kids and a job, I simply just don't have the time to get out on the water. So it's great to be able to catch the same experience on my phone wherever I am. And there are plenty of locations across the world to cast your line and different types of fish to go after. So there is a wide variety of challenges to tackle. I personally really enjoy the depth of Fishing Clash's gameplay, which requires good use of lures, power-ups, licenses and upgrading your equipment to catch fish. My personal favourite feature that always keeps me hooked is the PvP mode, which provides that competitive experience without my opponents putting stones in their fish and stealing my prize, and no, I'm not ever letting that go. So, if you want to reel in some fish and some free bonuses worth $20, click my link in the description box down below or scan the QR code on the screen to download Fishing Clash. Then all you have to do is navigate the menu, enter the gift code Count Dankula and the bonuses are yours, which include some power-ups and a unique avatar. New sponsor, show them some love. Click the link. First, I think it prudent to introduce you to our protagonist. One William Folk, or Bill, as his friends call him. A regular, God-fearing American 32 years young who decided in 1987 to move closer to work, having bought the cheapest and shittiest house available in the district of Tacoma, Washington, called the Hilltop. An area that was a quiet suburb in South Tacoma that would see a marked increase in gang and drug-related crime throughout the mid to late 80s. I wonder what happened in the 1980s to cause that. Bill was away working overseas for 2 years and he came back home to see that his new neighbourhood had become a complete shithole, riddled with gangs, guns and very un-Reaganomical drugs. These gangs, well, they are one of the prized exports of California. These swaggering hoodlums were making their way northwards for new untapped markets in the narcotics trade. You may have heard of these enterprising gents as they are a branch of an LLC known as the Crips. So you're probably asking, why did he buy this crummy hovel in the middle of what was becoming an urban war zone? Well, the house was abandoned for over a decade and he planned on renovating and restoring it to make it look actually nice and not like a dark RP asset. And it was an absolute steal. For $10,000 US or about $24,500 in 2023 Monopoly money, he got himself a cushy little hallway with a few rooms attached and he got to play House Flipper IRL. Back in a time where people could afford houses. Bill was a community man, advocating for greater police presence in the area, which fuck me they really needed because the Hilltop was virtually lawless. The Tacoma Police Department was so chronically underfunded that they had neither the money, fuel nor manpower to even patrol the area. They couldn't even afford the bullets that they needed to shoot people's dogs. Relations were already tense between the locals and the TPD before they pulled out. Apparently, it was common for 911 calls to bear no fruit, as they would just not bother showing up, only policing crimes that officers on the ground had witnessed firsthand. So naturally, Bill and his wife were very upset at this state of affairs, and they decided to try and nudge the police into actually doing their jobs. by doing things like recording license plates of known drug dealers, photographing faces, and most importantly, recording video footage from an upstairs window. The camera was pointed across the street to the local drug den. The footage alongside the license plates and photographs were all compiled and handed to the police. There were talks about curbing the issue, but seemingly not much in the way of any actual action. Then, on Thursday, September 21st, a news article was published detailing that indeed the situation at the Hilltop was so bad that apparently Bill, alongside other concerned citizens, were on the verge of vigilantism. This state of affairs and the article did actually slow down the frequency of drug dealing in the area, at the cost of angering the local drug dealers who lived right across the road from Bill's house. They all proceeded to threaten Bill not only for the camera pointed directly at their crib, but also for shining a spotlight on their enterprise. In response, as a show of unity, Bill decided to invoke the boomer ritual of the barbecue, asking some friends from work, alongside some journalists unfortunately, to mosey on down, bring meats, sauces and weapons in case the philanthropists next door objected to their cooking. Come Saturday, the barbecue is in full swing and everyone is talking about the Goonies or the NFL or something. Surprisingly, the entrepreneurs from next door start protesting their glizzies and start throwing rocks and rotten fruit at the partygoers, including firing a BB gun into Bill's windows. This all culminated in a warning shot from an actual gun at 6:30 p.m. This, as you may understand, is considered quite the faux pas at a barbecue, to which Bill and his colleagues went to defuse and constructively criticise the gents from next door for their form of protest. The next door gentlemen hand-waved their critiques and threatened to burn Bill's house down, and presumably kill them. That was a big mistake. What I have not disclosed up until this point is Bill's profession. Staff Sergeant William Folk was an active-duty US Army Ranger of 12 years who had just gotten back from a deployment in Panama. And he brought some of his colleagues from work, other Army Rangers, who all had guns. You already know how this story's going to end, but I'm going to tell it anyway. Bill walked 100 feet back to his house and phoned for more work buddies to arrive, totalling out to around 12 US Army Rangers, all of whom were packing the schmeat. Then, taking the initiative, Bill and company proceeded to draw up defensive plans, barricading the front of the house while the tycoons next door were driving laps around the house, flashing guns and pretending to drive by the barbecue. The Rangers were packed to the gills with personally acquired ordnance, an AR-15, an M14, a 12-gauge, 8 Browning high powers, and some desperado even had a 44 Magnum to high noon someone with. The clock strikes 9:20 p.m. and the first shot is fired. Ram Ranch was now under siege, under lockdown. 12 US Army Rangers had pulled up in Ford Raptor trucks to leak my nephew/boyfriend's nudes. Seriously, who the fuck had that in their bingo card? But anyway, with the first shot fired, the Army Rangers sprang into action. The Tacoma tussle was now underway. 12 US Army Rangers and an estimated 20 urban aristocrats duke it out for a gruelling 30-minute firefight. That might seem very short to you, but that half hour would have felt like days. An estimated 300 rounds were exchanged and the Rangers were surrounded and shot at from every direction. But they were still not relenting. The gentry were dishing out volleys from behind cars and bushes to no tangible effect. The police arrived after the fighting had died down, as they do. But they actually had not even been called in the first place, because frankly, Bill had no reason to believe they would even respond, let alone be of any help. Regardless, the Rangers, being the disciplined professionals that they are, laid down their weapons and obeyed the authorities once the fighting was over. After giving descriptions of some of the businessmen who attacked them, the officer tasked with confiscating the Rangers' guns must have felt sympathetic towards them, because he only confiscated the cheapo shite and none of the really good gear. The descriptions that the Rangers gave culminated in warrants and the subsequent arrests of 2 people. In what should be considered nothing short of an absolute miracle, nobody involved was killed, and there were only minor injuries. Though that's only officially. The remaining 18 gangsters disappeared into the concrete jungle, having never been caught. Of the 2 that were arrested, one, Frank Strickland, was convicted of second-degree assault and only given 22 months. And you wonder why the crime rate's so high. The very next day, there was a scrap between 2 women right outside of the house. We aren't particularly sure why this happened, but we decided to include it anyway. In the aftermath of the shooting, the TPD were heavily criticising the Rangers for not calling the police before the shooting started. And they even did the Karen move of going to Bill's commanding officers, who, on one hand, kind of endorsed the Rangers' decision, but also, on the other hand, criticised Bill for calling all of the boys up in the build-up to the shootout. I mean, 3 Army Rangers versus 20 gangbangers would still be a surprisingly fair fight, but I don't think you're supposed to be fair when it comes to this sort of thing. The shootout was the major catalyst which resulted in the TPD actually getting the funding to do their jobs. This, paired with a programme of encouraging homeowners to move in rather than stinky rentoids, meant that by 1997 the hilltop was completely overhauled. Over 40 homes remodelled from crack dens to normal people houses. And filled with normal people, not junkies. This included clearing out unironic absentee landlords. A campaign of sting operations resulted in over 200 businessmen being arrested in the space of 3 years. In summary, the hilltop got the El Salvador treatment, though not quite as dramatic. But what of Bill Folk? Well, he still lives in that exact same house to this day. After the battle, he went on to partake in the 1989 US invasion of Panama. I wonder why the US did that, you should probably Google it, before leaving the service altogether, maintaining that due to the events on the hilltop, he was passed up for promotion permanently. Bill also believes that there were definitely casualties in that battle. He recalled that one brave hoodlum tried to run and gun through the front door of the house and got wall-banged in the shoulder, having never even seen that guy get arrested. Bill maintains that he, and potentially a few others, avoided the hospital since hospitals tend to ask a lot of questions when you turn up with bullet wounds. And they possibly just never got treatment for it, or they even likely succumbed to their wounds. There are many lessons that can be learned from the Tacoma tussle. The importance of a well-funded police force, the primacy of the Second Amendment, something castle doctrine, you know the drill. Though there is definitely one undeniable truth made manifest by this story. Don't fuck with people who just want to grill.
It's Count Dankula on YouTube! Everybody subscribe!